Let's do it. It's go time.
Welcome to Go Time, your source for wide-ranging discussions from all around the Go community. Check us out on the web at gotime.fm. There you'll find lists of recommended and popular episodes, unpopular opinion clips, and a request form, so you can let us know what you want to hear about on the pod. Big thanks to our partners at Fly.io. Over 3 million apps have launched on Fly. Deploy yours in 5 minutes. Learn how at Fly.io. Okay, here we go.
What's up, friends? This episode is brought to you by porkbun.com. They offer domain extensions tech professionals need like .app, .dev, and .foo. If you need to showcase your next project, there is a .app for that. If you're building the latest SaaS product that will change the world, you can grab a .dev and show it off to the world. And you can show off your kung.foo programming powers if you're doing other cool stuff. You can also use the .app, .foo, or .dev domain to showcase your digital portfolio and show off your work. They all come with heightened security that benefits you and your visitors. They're designed to be secure. .app and .dev domains are HSTS preloaded, and that means all .app and .dev websites will only load over an encrypted SSL connection. This is, of course, the gold standard of website security. They all require an encrypted connection to load. Fortunately, a free Let's Encrypt SSL certificate is included with every Porkbun domain name registration, and you get the best pricing too, only $1 for the first year for .app, .dev, or .foo domain names. Whois privacy, SSL certificates, web and email hosting trials, they're all free. Why pay for things that should be free? And they have a simple management user interface, manage everything about your new domain name from one place, no hunting around for that feature you need, and they're backed by 5-star support 365 days a year. They have more authentic 5-star reviews from real, actual customers than any other registrar. So next time you need a domain name, get a .app, a .dev, or a .foo domain name at Porkbun for only $1 for the first year. Go to porkbun.com/gotime24. Again, porkbun.com/gotime24.
Hello and welcome to Go Time. On this Go Time episode, we're going to be focusing on the art of delivering concise, interesting, and captivating lightning talks. This is a popular format across a load of different conferences worldwide. We had it most recently at GopherCon, where they did 7-minute talks to share their interesting, innovative, and difficult problems that they have been solving and thinking about. I'm joined by some of those wonderful GopherCon Lightning Talk speakers today, and they're going to be talking to us about the experience of giving a lightning talk, some of the challenges, some kind of tips and tricks on how to effectively communicate an idea in such a limited amount of time. And then we're going to be putting their skills to the test. And a couple of them are going to be doing lightning talks as elevator talks, lightning talks in 60 seconds. So I think this is going to be a really, really fun episode. So first of all, we have Jacob, who started his tech career at Sun Microsystems, where he learned the network is the computer. And then after discovering Go in 2015, he's been feverishly, or deviously, as he put it, modernizing legacy systems to Go. And then in 2020, he became his assistant professor at the University of North Texas, where he's been converting students to Go ever since. Very happy to hear that. How are you, Jacob?
I'm doing great.
Really, really happy to have you on. Next up, we have Eden, who is a software developer who spent most of his career tinkering with instrumentation and trying to find ways for one piece of software to worm its way into another. He's been using Go for fun since 2016, and then he managed to convince his employer to pay him to use it in 2019. Well done to you. How are you today?
I'm okay. Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being here. And I see you have a little extra co-host with us today.
Yeah, this is Banjo, and I'll try to keep myself mostly muted so you don't hear him too much, but he's almost always going to chime in when I have something to say too. So.
And for those of you listening, Banjo is not a cat, a dog, or a different exotic pet. It is, in fact, a lovely, beautiful birdie. So we're very excited to have an additional guest with us today. Next up, we have Dylan. So Dylan's been a professional software engineer since 1998, working on banking, healthcare, finance, and now computer security industries. He's been writing Go full-time since kind of early 2016. He's been at CrowdStrike since 2019, and he's also an active participant in the Go for Slack organization. For those of you listening, that is a Slack organization that you can join if you Google it, or if you reach out to one of us, I'm sure we can add you. And he's a 4-time GopherCon speaker. I feel like I should give you a medal of some kind. How are you today, Dylan?
I'm good. How are you? Yeah, one of those was recorded virtual in 2020. But I've been on stage 3 times.
Oh my gosh. Well, a talk is a talk, and we're going to have to pick your brains today after all that experience. Right. Next up, we have Cassie, who is a software engineer at Diagrid and is actively contributing to Dapper. She focuses on back-end development to simplify the creation of resilient, event-driven, and microservice-based apps. And she's part of a Gopher family. So for those of you who have listened to the podcast before, we have had her twin sister, Sam, on a couple of times, and then her brother also writes Go. So very excited to have you on today, Cassie. How you doing?
Hi, Angelica. Thank you so much for having me. I'm super, super excited and having a great Friday.
Yes, happy Friday. For those of you listening at a later date, all of these wonderful guests have agreed to spend their Friday afternoon with me. So I feel very lucky. Then we have Matt Dale, who's a software engineer living in Pacific Northwest with 10 years of experience. He discovered Go in 2015. He loves writing software, contributing to and blogging about software engineering, specifically Go. And in his free time and professionally, he also does little side projects in Go and is currently at MongoDB. Hey, Matt, how you doing?
Hey, Angelica. I'm doing good. Just moved into a new house. My head is spinning with all of the stuff to do, and you can't see it on the stream, but the whole place is full of boxes.
Oh my gosh. But priorities, for those of you listening, Matt did have time to get out his Gophers and place them on the shelf. So that is the most important thing to unbox when moving into a new house is your Gopher plushies.
I can't actually take credit for that. That was my wife. She was like, you have to put these in the background. I was like, thank you for watching out for me.
I love that. And then last but certainly not least, we have Andy Joseph, who has architected and developed several industrial control platforms that propel the growth of a startup company into a highly respected world leader in motion control and sensing systems for manufacturing. As a prolific inventor, he's been awarded various patents in software, industrial motion, actuators, and sensing systems. I'm going to have to ask you about some of those words. Most recently, Andy led the development of an IoT product that connects industrial equipment to plant-wide data analytics and historian applications using services written in Go. Right, I know we're here today to talk about Lightning Talks, but Andy, can you say a little bit more about what that is and what that entails? It sounds extremely interesting.
It is. It keeps us very busy. We provide machines to manufacturing. So you think of like automotive, you're assembling cars and engines and that sort of thing. And a lot of our machines show up in plants. And we've about 5 years ago, we had a big initiative to create this IoT product that would connect our machines to our customers' data analytics. And so it was a prime application to use Go and to be able to connect the edge up to the cloud. So we had a lot of fun doing it, and we're continuing to do even more of that kind of development. So
really, really interesting. I'm sensing a follow-up episode where I'll want to dive in with you a little deeper. Awesome. Well, really excited to have you all. We're going to start with the very basics. What is a lightning talk for those listeners who might not have attended a conference which had lightning talks before or have heard the words lightning talk but are kind of unsure what that actually means? I wanted to ask, maybe Cassie, what is a lightning talk?
A lightning talk for GopherCon is a 7-minute presentation. I think of it as a short and sweet presentation. It's kind of like a single idea or concept, and it's pretty fast paced because if you have quite a bit of content, you only get the 7 minutes, then they cut you off.
For sure. And because you have such a short amount of time, how do you decide like what idea to bring, what idea is interesting enough to captivate your audience while also being able to kind of fit into 7 minutes of time? I don't know whether Jacob.
I mean, for me, I already had something prepared that I just cut down. But I think the lightning talks are really interesting because you have to focus on a single thing. And for a single problem, it's easy to add or remove background until you get the timing right. And you just give enough context to get people on board. And then you hit them with a conclusion and it's 7 minutes and you're done. So for me, that's pretty much what it was. Now, as a consumer of lightning talks, I actually like them a lot. I mean, I pick and choose the major talks, but I'll stay through all the lightning talks because not only is it a break from like the full sessions, but there's always more like esoteric stuff that's going on in the lightning talks. I feel that, doesn't warrant a full presentation, but it's always like neat and different kind of things.
Yeah. Mine was a rant that I do at work already all the time. And I said, I can do 7 minutes on that.
I think it's an extremely creative endeavor, and I've always thought of creativity as the art of taking stuff away, right, and saying no to certain things. And the first draft I did was easily a 30-minute talk, and so I just kept refining it and taking away stuff and getting it down to the bare essentials. And I ended up with 7 minutes, and it was quite an interesting process.
So in terms of process, I mean, Matt, maybe you're going to dive a little bit more into this, but I'd love to hear from you specifically. What was the process? Did you start with just like writing down random ideas? Did you start with a full talk and then have to cut it down further? Interested in kind of your experience in.
Well, I was fortunate to have written a couple of blog posts about this already. So I was like, I think that this could be an interesting topic for a lightning talk because it's, I think of lightning talks as sort of like adult show and tell, which is like you just want to tease your audience with this concept and then leave them asking questions. And that was sort of the original motivation for this blog series that I've been writing on, in this case, the Go Playground. So it was really obvious. I was like, boy, I really think that this would go well as a lightning talk also.
So in terms of working out like how it went, kind of what you said, Matt, how did they go? I would love to hear a little bit about kind of one, I would love if we could go around and say like, what even was your lightning talk? And then also a little bit about like, how did you feel it went? And I'm going to encourage you to be brutally honest with yourself. If you left being like, oh, I wish I had needed more time, or, oh, I wish I'd led with X, Y, Z, I'd really love for us to have that conversation because I think one, nerves are a factor. But two, I feel like if any of you are anything like me, I feel like I leave lightning talks or any talk I give or any meeting that I need to leave with a lot of like, oh, could have done that better. Or, oh, I wish I had done X, Y, Z. Eden, what do you think?
I actually have no recollection of how my talk went. I think I remember bits and pieces, but it's mostly a bit of a blur. And I think that's pretty normal of talks, but especially when it's so short that, when you kind of black out for the first few minutes, that's the whole talk. So my talk was on how the coverage tool that's built into Go works. And it was supposed to be sort of educational and teach people something that they didn't know a lot about. And so I had at least some basic set of material to get out within that amount of time. And say I definitely set myself up for failure with that one. But I think it went okay. I think I got feedback from people that they learned a bit that they didn't know before. It's about as much as I can ask for.
I had the same verbiage as you. I have no recollection. I remember being on stage and seeing lights, and then I remember not being buzzed. So 6 minutes, 59 seconds, I think, is what I did. But once they're posted, I'm going to go back and watch because I can't remember.
I do also remember the timer, like what it said when I finished. So that is something that sticks out. I think it was 6:42 or 49.
I did not look at the timer once. I just remember Angelica saying, "You got so much time left. Do you want to give us some a little dance lesson?" And I was like, "No, I don't think I should do that. That's a bad idea."
I do remember having microphone issues, but I got through it pretty well, I think.
Yeah, I was first in the session, so I got the privilege of standing on stage and having everyone stare at me for an extra 20 seconds during the intros.
I don't even remember being like introduced and brought on. That was like a blackout moment. I just like walked on and then I practiced so much and just turned into like autopilot. So I was pretty happy with how I did, but I just practiced so much. So
My first time on stage 2 years ago was like that. I was the opening keynote the second day and just completely blinded and dumbfounded at the crowd. The entire conference is in front of you. It was my first time actually on stage speaking to a big crowd. Lots of Zoom meetings and things, but it was a different experience, and it was kind of the same. Just went into autopilot mode and didn't remember a lot of the details while it was going on.
What caught me by surprise was I couldn't really see the audience. I think it was the lighting or something. And every presentation I've done before, I've been able to see the entire audience. But this one I couldn't. So I felt a little bit almost like I was there by myself on the stage. So
I remember seeing a couple of people in the front row that were clearly following along with the talk, but that was about it. It was just maybe a couple of people. One guy at some point smiled and gave me a thumbs up. I have no idea who he was, but shout out to that guy. It really
Same
helped, because
for
otherwise I
me.
would have been talking to nobody.
I remember seeing the front row people. I don't even remember seeing my sister, as funny as that is. She sat in the front row far over just so I could see her. I did not. And it's like beyond the front row, it's just like a black room. But I liked it that way. I don't know.
And do you think all of you have talked a little bit about how you kind of blanked out, a little bit autopilot? With that in mind, do you feel like the practicing before helped you be able to kind of go into that autopilot mode? I just feel like it is a sign of all of you being so prepared that you were able to even go into autopilot in the first place. Is that what you kind of attribute it to? Like, you've done it so many times before. Do any of you not practice too much? I know I've heard a few people in the past talk about like not wanting to over practice so that it comes across like charismatic or more conversational in presentation mode. But would love to hear a little bit about like, how did you prepare? Was it sitting down, writing notes, going through your slide decks?
Honestly, I didn't practice a lot this year because it was a lightning talk. It was very fast. And like I mentioned, it's something that I talk about at work all the time. My talk was on mocking and proper ways to do it. Had to have fun with it. Title was How to Mock Your Coworkers Without Involving HR. So it's things that I talk about all the time. So I didn't need to rehearse to kind of really get the information down. And it was very quick compared to past experiences where a 45-minute full tutorial, I practiced that for 3 weeks.
for me, the most difficult part of preparing was actually coming up with the first few things I would say. Everything else was pretty easy because of course, I know the material, but making that first few sentences it took me a couple hours to come up with something that I felt comfortable as an intro, because it is a little awkward because you don't want to spend too much time talking about non-essentials. But you kind of want to get, a little bit of the understanding is about what you're going to talk about. So yeah, that was a little awkward for me, but
I actually went back and watched most of the lightning talks from the last 2 years of GopherCon to be like, what do people do? How do you introduce yourself? What's important to like really get out of your mouth in the first 30 seconds?
That's overachiever mode right there.
That was like, right. I didn't know what to do mode.
I think for me, I wanted to make sure that I did not have filler words, because if I pause and just think about something, I will say those. So I wanted to practice enough so it was polished and I didn't have a bunch of likes or ums. I just knew what I was going to say for the 7 minutes, and I ended right at 6:55. So I was also really proud of the timing. I wanted to be almost exact.
I was going to say, I don't think I really spent a lot of time practicing the information. I spent at least 3 or 4 run-throughs on timing, because it's like one slide doesn't have the same information as another slide. And, in my talk, I had a couple slides that were obviously inserted for, quote, comedic effect. So I had to sort of time that on like, do I let this hang or do I like click on it, read it as quick as possible, and then move on to like reinforce the stupidity of my slides. So the timing was hard for me.
I did work out that my last slide, the conclusion, was about 45 seconds. So I spent quite a bit of time getting to hitting that slide at 6 minutes to make sure that I was not going to get dinged, because no one wants that.
I mean, I can echo what other people said, that the content of the talk wasn't really a problem, because I know a lot of that I could easily talk for an hour, but that's the problem, is that I could. So I had to drill it a lot and make sure that I was going to hit the timing okay. Because with the format, if you go over, there's a buzzer and it doesn't look good and it doesn't sound good and there's no recovery. But a full length talk, you usually have at least a few minutes leeway. If you're a full length talk, you're not going to get booted off the stage immediately. So that was my fear. I definitely spent a lot of time. The whole talk was scripted pretty much start to finish. And it wasn't just a series of bullet points I had to over prepare, I felt like.
So I'm really going to push you. What would you do differently? I mean, I know you're on autopilot, but there must have been something that you recollect or now reflecting upon it that you would do differently if you were to do another round of lightning talks.
At 6 minutes, there's a beep that goes off. And I can't remember exactly what slide I was on when that beep went off. But in hindsight, I wished I had paused, because I'm pretty sure I just kept going straight through it. So I walked off the stage knowing, like, as I watched other lightning talks, that I kind of maybe messed that up a bit, but who knows? So we'll see when the recordings come out.
I would have left out the Highlander reference. I think I was showing my age.
But there's a new one coming out. So a few years from now, it'll be relevant again.
Right? I mean, the Simpsons reference worked. People got that one. The Hide the Pain Harold went over well. The Highlander one was just crickets. Not a lot of the GopherCon crowd remembers movies from the mid-'80s.
No. I personally don't.
I don't remember
it. Go on, Jacob.
I was disappointed that I resorted to using PowerPoint. For all my other talks, I use GoPresent, and this last year, the GoTalks server has been extra sassy, so you can't host it off of GitHub anymore, and you got to do it local. And I just said, you know what? I'm going to avoid any technical problems. I'm going to use PowerPoint, trusted and true. And then I think the talk right after me was using GoPresent, and I was like, oh, I was disappointed in myself.
I did the opposite. I usually do something like DexSet or GoPresent, where you write out your slides in Markdown or some kind of code. And I started with the tried and true this time, thinking I would keep it simple. And I think I got to Chicago and decided I hated my slides. I think I redid literally all my slides in DexSet, 2 days before the talk after I landed in Chicago. So I could have gone either way, honestly.
Do you feel like slide decks and having a deck behind you is important for lightning talks? Do you think it helps people follow the talk? Does it help you all to kind of center yourself on where you are in the talk? I've seen lightning talks where they just had one slide that had a gopher on it, not even words, and then they just talked for 7 minutes. I'd be interested to hear yours view.
I mean, personally, I like the slides during the lightning talk. It keeps you there. It keeps you following. You've got a timeline. And I am someone who, if you give me 45 minutes and a slide with one word on it, yeah, I'll do that. I will run forever. So having the slides and keeping timing was really important for me.
I can't see doing it without slides because, as you're doing the scripting and you're memorizing it to some extent, like with me, I associate that with the pictures I'm seeing on the slides. So when I see that picture, the whole story comes back, and I can basically remember it that way. So I couldn't do it without the slides.
I kind of think the same. If it was without slides, I would have to rehearse so much to be able to get it all in that it would become mechanical. I don't think the presentation would go over as well without the slides, because with the timing and the cues, and then you can throw in Simpsons references and get a laugh from the crowd.
I resonate. I also think I need the slides to form the story more, so I don't just talk about nonsense and go off on tangents. Not that I think I would, but just to keep in order, build the story from start to finish, and then add the details where relevant with slides and whatnot.
Yeah, and to Dylan's point, how are you going to get memes if you don't have slides?
That's the most important aspect.
I feel like it's hard though, because you don't know what memes to choose that are going to resonate with the full GopherCon audience. I feel like talks in the past, that has been, obviously the content's difficult too, but for me, it's been like, what gift do I put here? What meme would resonate? I feel like it's a challenge.
I teach, and I intentionally put cringe memes into the slide decks just to keep the Gen Alphas, entertained, and it's cringe. But for the lightning talk, I was like, I agree. There's like, what's going to hit? I don't know the whole group of people. We have people from all over the world. So I just went with old standard British humor of silliness, and that seemed to work. So,
I mean, it's an IT conference. The hide the pain, this is fine, will always go over well. We can all identify.
Everyone will laugh at a disaster for sure.
If I had to change something, that's actually something I would change. I felt like I under-memed. I mean, I was like, I'm going to keep this super simple. This is like my first time presenting at GopherCon. And I was like, I could have really thrown some memes in there.
I defaulted to showing cute gopher images instead of the memes because I knew that would go over well.
Know your audience. A load of cute gophers is definitely going to resonate. Awesome. So I'd love to talk a little bit now about the differences between lightning talks versus longer talks, workshop sessions. I know a number of you are very seasoned, Dylan, at talking at these kind of conferences. So I'd love to understand, what do you all see as the core differences, whether it be the way you prepare, the way it feels when you present, between doing lightning talks and doing longer form talks? Maybe Dylan, as our seasoned speaker, GopherCon, you can let me know.
As the grizzled veteran.
Which actually, I think everyone on this call is pretty experienced, honestly. But yes, the grizzled GopherCon veteran, Dylan.
So my very first talk was, like I said, the second day keynote. It got picked. And I was in front of the entire conference on the second day, first talk in the morning, dumping on Go modules with Russ Cox sitting in the front row. So that wasn't awkward at all. But it was 25 minutes. So there were a lot of nerves. I spent a lot of time kind of, hey, is this right? Is this the right balance of information? Not getting into droning on about technical things. In comparison to Lightning Talk, I approached it as a lot of fun. It was lighthearted. I think I had 17 or 18 slides, and probably 6 of them had some type of meme or joke on it. A lot more fun to do. The longer talk was much more stressful, especially with Russ 20 feet away. And I also did a 45-minute tutorial last year. That one was a lot of time, much, much longer to put in. That one was probably 65 or 70 slides with a bunch of content. That one took a long time to prepare for and to get everything together. So for me, this year was fun. I came in, didn't have any responsibility to do a big talk. There was no stress level. I went into it like, hey, lightning talks are going to be fun this year. I can go rant for 6.5 minutes.
I mean, you keep on saying how fun it was. I would love to hear from kind of anyone else in the group. When preparing for a longer talk, do you feel like it has to be a little bit more serious? I mean, in my mind, you have to keep your audience's attention for a longer period of time. So the temptation, certainly my temptation would be, I got to keep it light to like keep them engaged, get a laugh here and there. If I go too serious, maybe they'll zone out. But also, if you're talking about a really complex technical concept, you want to keep it crisp and clear and maybe not muddy the waters with a joke that might not resonate. Would love to hear your reactions to that.
I mean, I think my lightning talk was, I wouldn't say super technical, but it did get into the weeds of something that a lot of people don't pay a lot of attention to. And so I had to get a lot of info out pretty quickly. So I don't think I had time to put memes on slides, really. Like Dylan was saying, his longest talk had 70 slides. The one including, I guess, transitions, the talk I gave was 48 slides because there's just a ton of info to get out. So I really don't know. I'd be curious, like, this is certainly the biggest stage I've ever talked on. So that could be why this is the case. But I feel like I had to prepare much more for this than I have for any other talk I've given, at work or local meetups or anything like that.
Matt, what do you think?
I think that one of the things that stresses me out about longer talks is the feeling like you're covering something more comprehensively, and you really have to like know the topic in and out from like every angle, because someone's going to ask you, especially if it's at like a meetup, someone's going to be like, oh, but what about this? What happens this? And have felt for the longer presentations a lot more stress to be like comprehensively cover the technical topic. And for the lightning talk, I wanted to sort of avoid that particular stress and present something more of like, here's something that you can go explore yourself. So that was probably the biggest difference. Was I wanted to present more of like a marketed, like pull people in, rather than like feel like I have to comprehensively cover some really deep technical topic.
Yeah, luckily no Q&A at GopherCon. I know some other conferences will allow the audience to ask questions. And yeah, it can sometimes be a bit intimidating and a bit of a nightmare, especially if you have someone in the audience who is making it their mission to ask you the most complex question that they possibly can. And therefore you are forced to be like, it's a really good question. I'll talk to you after this. Yeah, let's more off the stage.
The conference organizer.
Meet me to the side of the stage in a few minutes.
Yeah, and then, I'm so sorry. I need to rush off somewhere. I'm so sorry. I can't actually talk to you right now.
The email that we got from the conference organizer said in big, bold red letters, do not field any questions after your talk. So she was pretty explicit about avoiding that.
Yeah, for sure.
Last year, I did have 6 or 7 people lined up on the side of the stage asking questions about the content of the talk. So my talk went over by about 15 or 20 minutes with the conversations afterwards.
I think you get a lot more money, or a lot for your money, when you do a 7-minute talk versus, say a 30 or 45-minute talk, in terms of the number of people that you reach with a single message. And it takes about the same amount of time to prepare for both. So why wouldn't you do the lightning talk then?
So I want to challenge that. Are you saying that you think it takes the same amount of time to prepare for a lightning versus a longer talk for you?
In my limited experience, it does take about the same amount of time. Yeah, I mean, I've done 45-minute talks as well, and it took about the same time to prepare for it.
But then if you practice, the practice loop is much longer.
It is. It is, definitely.
I'm definitely the other end of the spectrum on that. Like I said, I spent weeks preparing for that first talk, literally multiple weeks. And the lightning talk, I think I spent 25, 30 minutes writing up the original proposal, then probably 2 hours doing slides, and I practiced it 4 or 5 times, mostly to get it under 7 minutes.
Do you think that had anything to do with the content of the talk, or do you think that was because, it was just a shorter talk?
Probably a bit of both. A lot less stressful, and there's a lot less concern about making a mistake in 15 slides than in 60. So there isn't as much to rehearse and memorize. But also, this was content that I talk about all the time. I could do 7 minutes on it right now if we wanted to, just ad hoc.
I mean, I feel like I could do 10 minutes ad hoc, and that's sort of the problem. So a lot of the practice went into making sure that I wouldn't do that. I think I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum here from you, as far as I think I probably had to put more time into just because it was entirely scripted. But I don't know. I haven't done a longer talk at GopherCon, so
Long talk, short talk. At least it's not a workshop.
At least it's not a workshop.
Yeah, prepping for workshops is not great. I love doing workshops, mostly because I've done them to like high school and then college students. But the prep for them is like, you got to look at every single, piece of hardware they're bringing in, or, someone comes in and they're running Go 112 and you're like, what?
Yeah. I assume their prep email did not tell them not to field any questions.
On Windows 95.
I mean, do you feel like a workshop is just like a more segmented talk? Like you give a bit of a spiel and then you talk through the concept and then they do an exercise. I know it's very down to the workshop lead's style of running the workshop, but I would be interested. We've talked about kind of difference between lightning and full time, like talk versus workshop session. Would love to dig into that just a little bit.
I mean, I'll keep talking just because I will. I'm a consumer of workshops. I do love them. I do back-end code. So like the first workshop I did at this last GopherCon was all IoT stuff and, the Badger boards and the drones. And I was like, this is awesome stuff. I'm not an embedded programmer whatsoever, but this is a diversion from what I normally do, and it's really interesting. Now, organizing that workshop, I would hate to be on the other side, but a consumer of it, it was fun and great. So
Yeah, I've kind of been on both sides. I attended 2 workshops at GopherCon, one years ago, 2018, I believe, and then one this year, and they were drastically different. But both were very hands-on, kind of almost classroom environment, which is, like Jacob said, different. It's fun. It's a diversion, but it's definitely a different experience. On the flip side, a coworker of mine hosted a workshop, put one on this year, and I helped him put together his materials and review the exercises and kind of going through and writing the code for them. How does this work? How does it feel? It definitely was a ton of work that he put into making it an educational experience where people would feel like they got value out of it.
This is a changelog news break. I like this set of metaphors for how to think about bucketing challenges into different categories. Some problems are like harvesting. Quote, harvesting problems have straightforward solutions and no shortcuts. You just get a big basket and pick every strawberry in the field. You solve these problems with pure perseverance, slogging away for weeks, months, or years until they are done. Some problems are like fishing. You know that there are fish out there in the ocean, but you don't know exactly where. If a great fisherman knows where the hungriest fish are and how to set their lines just right, they might catch everything that they need in a few hours. Fishing problems can sometimes be solved shockingly fast by motivated teams with a bit of luck. Some problems are like panning for gold. Going out to a river or stream where there might be gold, getting your pan out, and seeing if you can find traces of the shiny stuff in the sediment. If you find gold, you can become generationally successful. Think of the massive moats created by Google search or the Airbnb network. End quote. If you can categorize the problem you're trying to solve into one of these buckets, applicable strategies become much more clear. You just heard one of our 5 top stories from Monday's Changelog News. Subscribe to the podcast to get all of the week's top stories and pop your email address in at changelog.com/news to also receive our free companion email with even more developer news worth your attention. Once again, that's changelog.com/news.
So before we kind of move on to our second segment of the episode, which is going to be where we're going to put a couple of you to the test in terms of being concise and to the point, I would love to go around and I can call on you kind of one by one and ask you to give like your top tip, 1 or 2 tips to anyone who's thinking about, doing a lightning talk, to help our kind of listeners understand from you all. Now you've done it, I would argue successfully, having seen all of yours, and I enjoyed them a lot. Kind of give them some pearls of wisdom. So why don't we start with you, Matt?
Sure. Probably the thing that helped me the most was presenting it to someone else, and obviously practicing a lot. At least for my style, I get really, really nervous when I do these talks, and I really need to be on autopilot. But presenting it to another person and getting their feedback, but also having to like stow your self-consciousness and get used to talking to another person.
Great. Jacob.
So I got 2 things, and it's more like, I guess, on the not only the prep side, but like the, hey, I got to choose something kind of side of things. So I had it easy. This was a workshop this was the introduction to the workshop that I just sort of chopped down and then got the timing right. But in preparation for something new, I think you got really 2 paths. Either you can focus on a single problem and then your path to that solution. And it could be a simple problem and a simple solution. And the filler in between is all the context and background. It's the why of why this was a problem or why the solution had to happen this way. And then you can get right to 659 and you're done. And the other thing I was looking at was highlighting a product, doing sort of product highlight, and product being a piece of software, a tool, something like that. And for there, you can just add highlights of that till you get to 69. Pretty much what Matt did, honestly. Simple highlight tool, get there, bang, you're done. And that seems really effective. Matt's talk was great, and I liked it. Everyone's talk was great. I'm so sorry. I loved everyone's talk.
Oh, sure. You say it now.
Yeah, we're picking favorites now.
That's my two,
Got
tips for finding something.
Okay. But how to talk about a product without it sounding like a marketing pitch, which I think can sometimes be a challenge, I think. When I've thought about some lightning talks talking about why do I like this tool? It has XYZ features. I've sometimes felt myself like I was being like a sales rep, being like, this is why temporal is great, which it is, by the way. Temporal is great. But you know what I mean? Finding that balance.
I think focusing on what it provides, it's not really focusing on the product itself, but just focusing on what it provides. And then at the end of the talk, you can say, hey, all these things that would be great in something. Oh, look, I've been talking about temporal this whole time. And then the last minute, you just discuss how you use it.
Little mic drop.
You should come by the booth. We have salespeople there.
Oh, no.
Throw candy into the audience.
To a technical audience, you can sort of tap into why you like working on it, why it's exciting to you, because that might excite some of them. And so instead of trying to sell it to them, you sell them on why you work on it. And that's usually it goes over better, I think, than a logo.
That's what I would say is my tip is picking something you're passionate about and that excites you, not something that's kind of dull and boring, because then it'll be dull and boring for the attendees. And then my tip was I practice in a mirror, because no one wants to have just a dull face when you're presenting, right? You need to be engaging.
I love that. I feel like I should do that before any Go Time episode, even though they don't really see us. But I feel like I want to be animated for you all. I don't want a dull face.
I would say if anyone ever asked me, should I would say, yes, do it. One of the highlights of Lightning Talks for me is that they are random. They're not so regimented, technical. It's going to be Go execution tracer or logging or tracing or whatever the case may be for the language. They're random. They're all over the place. It's a fun diversion to go and see Matt this year talk about remodeling his kitchen. The randomness is fun, and it's a nice diversion for people. So whatever it is that you think that you want to talk about, do it.
I think the genuine passion for the topic comes through a lot more in Lightning Talks, because I think it's easier to be genuinely passionate about a topic for 7 minutes than for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, you're like, can I just talk about something else, please?
It's exhausting talking for that long.
The adrenaline crash after 45 minutes is definitely real.
Andy, what is your top tip?
I second. I think Cassie said this, is that it's really important to talk about something you're passionate about. What is it that you can talk about that just lights you up, and just makes you just smile about what you're talking about. I think that's key. And I think the other big tip is just get a good night's sleep beforehand, because you want to practice a lot the night before and then just go to sleep, and in the morning practice again, and you'd be amazed at how much better you can do the talk the next day. And that helped me a lot. And definitely hydrate. You got to drink a lot of water, because you're kind of nervous, whatever, and you're burning up all that water, and you get up on stage and all of a sudden you just you get a dry mouth. So definitely want to hydrate a lot. So
I can have a little counterpoint to that, which was I thought it would be a good idea to stay super hydrated, but we get mic'd up 20 minutes before the talks start. And then I was the second in the lineup, so I had to stay for the entire rest of the hour. So I was going on 2 hours after drinking a ton of water, because I really did not want to get dry mouth up on stage. So it can kind of go both ways, but hydration's a good tip anyway.
Also, Andy, getting a good night's sleep is easier said than done before doing something like public speaking.
Yeah, and it's hard at the GopherCon, because you want to go and hang out with people and all that, but you really, you have to think about it.
Yeah. As a typical software engineer introvert, I save up my socializing for the 4 days during GopherCon, and I do a year of socializing in those 3 nights.
Nice.
Yeah, same. It's you see the same people, and then you're all friends, and then you're like, oh, wait, but I need to practice. I can't go out tonight. But after my talk, I'm all for it.
No, for sure. Last but certainly not least, Adam, what's your top tip I know you +1, but I want to hear your unique one.
Yeah, I think everyone has stolen what I was going to say so far, but I'll say, because I definitely struggled getting mine under time and making sure that it would be under the right time. So I broke it up into like sections or chapters, and I would drill each section like independent of one another. And it wasn't until, the night before or the morning of that I was able to string them all together. But I kind of knew I was under 7 by just adding up the amount of time it took to do each individual chapter. And that helped breaking it up. So you're not on rails the entire time.
Did that help also, like, cutting down time? Like, if you found a section was a little bit longer, you were able to, like, cut it down? Was that also kind of helpful as a tool?
Yeah. I can kind of prioritize the importance of each section as far as what it'll take to make the audience understand what I'm trying to talk about, and then say, okay, I will need to borrow a bit from one section to make this section or to emphasize this section. So it did help a bit. But
Awesome. Any final pearls of wisdom before we move on to our elevator pitches?
Something I learned I didn't expect is macOS has like the scripting feature can let you resize windows to very specific sizes. And that's a top tip I got from Jeff Geerling's blog. I like watching his stuff on YouTube, and I was like, wow, this guy has all the tips.
Awesome. Thank you very much for your top tips. Right now, we don't have a jingle for it, but I'm going to ask our lovely producer, Jared, to make me one for when we actually release the episode for elevator pitches. So I'm just going to elevator pitches.
That's the jingle right there.
Knowing Jared, he's probably going to sample my voice from this recording and just put it in there just to spite me.
We're going to T-Pain auto-tune this so hard.
I will be making sure that happens, because I'll be disappointed if your voice is not the jingle.
I think, doesn't Aerosmith have a song about elevators?
Oh my gosh, yes. We should sample that. And we just make sure that we don't go over the copyright allowed number of seconds, and we'll be fine. If not, I can just grab my guitar, give it a go. It's fine. Add a few extra chords so that it's not technically that close.
I would love to hear that.
Me too. But luckily, we have some wonderful people who probably will do it far better than I would. Awesome. So the way it's going to work is I will kind of call on you. I won't start the time then. I'll ask you to, introduce yourself, the title of your elevator pitch, and then I will say 3, 2, 1, go. You will have 60 seconds to give your elevator pitch, which was your lightning talk at GopherCon. When you get to 60 seconds, there will be a buzzer. It will not be a sound effect buzzer. It will be a buzzer a la Angelica's mouth. And it will sound somewhat like a goat crossed with a cow, like, Mah. At that point, your time has been cut off. So you can quickly make your conclusion, and then I will do the same for the next wonderful elevator pitcher, and we'll get through you. We have lovely 4 elevator pitches today, and we're going to start with you, Dylan. So, Dylan, introduce yourself, give me your title, and then I will say 3, 2, 1, go, and then you'll be off to the races. So, Dylan, do you want to introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Dylan Burke. I work at CrowdStrike. I'm an engineer for a long time. My lightning talk today is how to mock your coworkers without involving HR.
Thank you so much. Right. 3, 2, 1, go.
So, mocking your coworkers usually earns you an uncomfortable meeting with your manager and someone from HR. But it doesn't have to if you limit it to just your tests. Opinions vary on whether or not to use mocks, but if you do, don't assume everyone else will make the same decisions that you did. Don't export your mocks. That's the line. Sounds simple enough, but how do we get there? First, make sure that all of your mocks are in an _test.go file or in a folder under internal. That way it guarantees that no one else can import your mocks and create coupling. Next, if you're using one of the frameworks that does code generation, don't assume it's installed. Go install drops binaries in GoPath bin. Lastly, don't predefine and export interfaces. You can't export mocks if there's nothing to mock. Missed it by 1 second.
That was very good. I like that you didn't speak too fast. You still retained an understandable pace. 5 points to Gryffindor. That was great.
Score.
Eden, you're next. So please introduce yourself, give us the talk title, and then I'll give you your countdown.
Yeah, I'm Eden. I work at Contrast Security on our Go agent, and I've been programming for a medium amount of time, I guess, compared to Dylan. And my talk was called Implementing Code Coverage with Tool Exec.
Great. 3, 2, 1, go.
Go's code coverage tool takes your source code and adds little counters to the top of every block of statements. So each branch gets its own counter, and as your code runs, it increments these counters. And then before your program exits, it dumps the state of all of these counters to disk, and then Go can use this to tell you which parts of your code ran. So it's really a lot simpler than most people assume it is. Now, all of these counters get added just before your code is compiled, and there's a flag built into Go called tool exec, which tells Go that instead of spawning the compiler, it should spawn your program instead. And you can use that to implement your own version of the coverage tool. Now, the obvious follow-up is, why would you ever do this? And the answer is you probably shouldn't, but it is a fun excuse to poke around inside the Go command and learn a little bit about how it works. And it's usually simpler than people assume it is. So it's a lot of fun to do it. That's all I got.
Oh my gosh, under time. I love that. 52 seconds.
Didn't expect that. I was pretty sure I was going to go over.
Well, you've clearly packaged, even within 60 seconds, you've got your little sections. So you've got it down to a science at this point.
Well, you're offsetting my 1 second over. It's fine.
Yeah, sharing is caring. We can just share the time between you both. Awesome. Next up, we have Andy. Do you want to introduce yourself in your talk?
I'm Andy Joseph. I founded a project called Pronto GUI. I've been a developer for many, many years in many different languages. And the title of my talk is an infomercial on would you like a GUI with that?
Great title.
And I predict that it will take 56 seconds and 21 roughly. So let's give it a
Okay, we'll put that to the test. Ready? 3, 2, 1, go.
If you love the Go programming language as much as I do, then you never want to leave that environment. Thankfully, there are Go modules for just about everything. But what if you want to create a GUI for your service? Do you have time to build and maintain a solution in React.js? Chances are you don't. This is where Pronto GUI helps. First, you import the Pronto GUI module into your program. It's lightweight, it's fast, it has few dependencies. Next, you build your GUI using primitives, representing things you want to see, such as buttons, text items, tables, and so on. Finally, you launch the Pronto GUI app, which is built using Flutter to interact with your GUI. They communicate using gRPC streaming. How cool is that? This all happens in hours, not weeks. I've used Pronto GUI to build solutions such as simulating industrial machines and an expense report management solution. I'm confident it can do a lot more. It's a fast way to develop a GUI in Go. You can get it on GitHub and let me know what you think.
But wait, there's more.
There is more, but I didn't have time.
That was a great infomercial.
Yeah, I want to go use Pronto GUI right now.
Adjusting the tone and format based on the time you get given. Innovation at its finest and flexibility.
The key to doing a 1 minute talk is to practice breathing, because I felt like I was running out of air.
How do you have time to breathe in a 1 minute talk, or do you just have to practice underwater talking?
That's hard.
Awesome. Last but certainly not least, and those who have not given an elevator pitch, I will ask if you'd like to give one, no pressure. But finally, we have Cassie. Do you want to give a little intro on you and your talk title, and then I'll count you in?
Definitely can do. Yeah, I'm Cassie Coyle, software engineer at Diagrid. I contribute to the Dapper open source project.
Awesome. And what is your talk title?
Oh, yes, I forgot. Standardizing errors in Go, a practical guide with Dapper. And that is my intro sentence as well. So I will say it again when I start.
Love that. Right. 3, 2, 1, go.
Welcome to Standardizing Errors in Go, a practical guide with Dapper. In this talk, I'll introduce Dapper, Distributed Application Runtime, the 10th largest CNCF project, and share about our open source errors package to be more empathetic to our users. We'll explore the errors package that enriches errors using the informative model inspired by the Google's gRPC API error details. The Dapper Kit errors package is written entirely in Go, all open source, and it uses the builder pattern. allowing you to provide users with essential error details, including resource info, retry info, help link, and more. We implemented the error interface such that the primitive type returned is actually error as well, and then you don't have that additional type to maintain. This is definitely an ongoing effort for us. I hope you see how it benefits us in our community, how it could also benefit you and yours. Thank you so much.
Woo! So close. You got it right on that 60 seconds.
Now I feel like a massive failure as the only one who went over.
I mean, you did tell us earlier in the episode that you don't really prepare, so expect it. No, joking.
It's fair.
Right.
Honestly, I feel like when I asked you all whether you would be comfortable doing your lightning talks in 1 minute, I was very prepared for you all to be like, no. So thank you very much for accepting the challenge. And I actually feel like those were really great elevator pitches that I got a lot out of. And for those of you who feel like that elevator pitch just wasn't enough, you want to dig in more. As we've mentioned, all of our lovely guests today gave lightning talks at GopherCon this year. We'll be releasing the videos on our GopherCon YouTube, hopefully in the next few weeks, depending on when this episode gets released. Timings may vary, but you can check there and see the full 7-minute talk from all of these lovely guests. Would anyone who didn't give an elevator pitch like to? No pressure. I just want equal opportunity.
Sure.
Jacob, you're up for it?
Now I feel left out. So zero prep. We'll see what we can do here.
I'll give you a second. Introduce yourself and tell us what you're going to be talking about.
So I'm Jacob. I write software. That's literally from my bio slide because
Great.
bios take too long.
And what is your title?
You can start. Let's just go. Let's just do a minute.
Start. Okay, I'm ready. 3, 2, 1, go.
So Golang for competitive programming, emphasis on question mark. The spoiler here is no. So there's a law in journalistic headlines that if the headline ends in a question mark, the answer is no. And in this case, no. Go is not great for competitive programming. What is competitive programming? It's a time sport where you basically play code golf to solve a problem with a solution in code. And a lot of times it's in Python or JavaScript, or if you hate yourself, Java itself. But Go is not great for this because it doesn't solve any of Go's actual, it doesn't play to any of its strengths like parallelism or software engineering. So competitive programming itself is sort of antithetical to software engineering, and don't use Go for it. Done.
Mic drop.
Nice.
Well done.
If you hate yourself, use Java. I feel that so much.
Yeah, need that on a shirt.
Besides that part of the message, I actually really like the other message, which is the reason that Go is not really great for competitive programming is actually stuff that makes it good. And I thought it was a nice way to phrase it.
And I could talk about it longer, obviously, and I will for 5 more seconds. It's one of the things the students right now I really have a problem with because I'm having to tell them, hey, for career readiness, as a senior, you need to dive back into algorithms. You need to start doing leak code because all the online assessments now, it's not a free pass anymore. The market's a lot different. And at the same time, I'm telling them, also, this is dumb. Leak code is sort of dumb. If you enjoy it, it's great. It's like people who play chess. There's no point to chess, but if you play it and enjoy it, do it, right? But yeah, I'm going to mirror that sentiment. Go is not designed for this. It's not designed for software engineering at scale. The reasons we all love it.
It's funny you're encouraging leak code because I have a personal aversion to interview processes that involve leak code.
Hey, I'm on the same side with you there.
No one likes them.
No one likes them.
I go out of my way to not do it. It's like, no, we're not going to do some stupid algorithmic, bleh. I can't even speak. It annoys me so much. Some stupid algorithmic problem that either you already know or you don't know, and you're just going to flounder for 45 minutes. Neither one of those helps anyone.
But if you practice, you might get a similar question.
Who has time to practice?
Yeah, that's the real question.
I feel like you all know where my brain is going because we're going up to unpopular opinions. And I feel like, Jacob, you've given us 2 already to work off of.
Those were popular opinions?
Unpopular
Yeah.
opinions. Maybe.
No.
LeetComb sucks. I'm sure there are people who love it.
This is a Go podcast. Java is terrible is a pretty safe bet.
Yeah. Awesome. So thank you all for taking the time to both do kind of elevator pitches, talk about lightning talks, the differences between them and long talks, and also just spending your Friday afternoon with me. I really appreciate it. So with that very kind and caring sign off, we're now going to move into the more spicy section of the episode, which is unpopular opinions.
I actually think you should probably leave.
So, who is going to start us off with an unpopular opinion? A reminder, it does not need to be about Go or tech or anything remotely to do with Go or tech. It can be just an opinion that you believe when put on Twitter to our wonderful Go community or other software engineers who happen to listen to Go Time. They're going to be like, no, I don't agree with you.
I have a technical one.
Great.
Using protobuf's well-known types is overrated.
And what alternative do you suggest?
Just define your own values. My example is timestamp.
Mhm.
Like a timestamp is an integer. If we're being real about it, it's an integer or maybe a string. Why do you need to pull in an external dependency and a nested message and all the conversions back and forth for a time? Disclaimer, my aversion is partly informed by having to do a massive conversion off of GoGo Protobuf 2-ish years ago. And they had their own implementation of all the protobuf well-known types that I had to straddle GoGo and Google for about 18 months. So just don't.
Do we think that's an unpopular one?
I think it makes sense. I mean, I've had to deal with timestamps before, and I've rolled my own type like 3 times dealing with other people's time formats, because there's almost no point using someone's built-in format because you might need it in milliseconds or you might need it in something. I mean, there's just like weird things to consider that if you don't roll your own, you don't have control over. I don't know. I know time was only one example, but yeah.
I think it's an unpopular opinion among C++ devs. I think C++ devs will stab you in the front and the back over this sentiment. But I can get on board with this.
I mean, there's the related opinion that time zones were a mistake.
That's not unpopular among programmers. But I mean, I will say it kind of does play into like a little repetition is better than a little dependency, which is not supposed to be unpopular. It's one of the Go, forget the word, proverbs. So feels like that.
I get a lot of pushback whenever I throw this idea out, but maybe you don't need an external dependency to send a time over the wire. Like you could just do it yourself. And it doesn't seem to go over well.
And Angelica, did you grow up in UTC?
Yeah.
When did you learn about other time zones?
When I was young and I moved to the US.
Oh, okay. They're horrible. I hate them.
No, I've actually ironically spent the least time of my life in London and in England. I spent the rest of my life in other places. So
UTC, my beloved.
Yeah.
So I'm in Central Time in Louisiana, and this company I used to work for had a customer in Arizona who chooses not to do daylight savings time.
Okay.
And scheduling is really fun on the border between Arizona and New Mexico when 5 minutes down the road, it may or may not be an hour different. Time zones were a mistake.
Okay. Time zones were a mistake.
I just implemented a distributed scheduler and we had to consider these kinds of things. So, yeah, fun stuff.
All right. Well, we'll see what the masses think of what I think was 2 unpopular opinions. So I'm great. Very, very great. I don't think this group found them all that unpopular, but maybe the masses will. We'll wait and see. Does anyone else have an unpopular opinion that they would like to share?
Since we were talking about C++ and other languages earlier, mine is that CGO has performance issues. I don't think that's a particularly controversial take, but Go's kind of shaky interop with C is, I think, actually a good thing, because it has forced us to not have to depend on a lot of popular libraries, much of which are kind of garbage at this point. Like, there are a lot of really bad C++ libraries out there, or C libraries that people have just defaulted to for things like SSL or like parsing XML and things like that. And interop with C is very useful at times, but it's kept Go away from a lot of trash dependencies. And I say this because I've been noodling with Zig for the past couple of weeks for one reason or another, and we really got off easy with much simpler builds, not having to depend on so much C libraries.
As someone who's had to deal with quite a bit of CGO, I concur 100%. Like, it's kind of a good thing that it's hard, because lots of people are like, oh, I can just use CGO. But you could also not.
Yeah. At this point, I almost always prefer than not. There's a few exceptions, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. I work in a weird place where sometimes we need weird stuff, and I'm not attacking your opinion. Let me start off. This is a backdoor agreeing with your opinion.
I mean, you can disagree too, Jacob. Like, this is the spicy segment.
Oh, I will. I will disagree with a lot more.
Okay, I'm ready.
Like crypto FIPS. Like, the crypto FIPS library doesn't exist in Go, and even Microsoft had to go create their own, and it's binding to OpenSSL sort of, and there's huge gaps. And the Go packages themselves are great and solid. Crypto itself is super solid now. It's just not as big as it needs to be. There's not enough people working on it. And that's where there's a lot more people that know C versus there's a lot of people who know Go.
Yeah. I mean, with crypto in particular, frankly, I would prefer to use stuff that I know is written by people like Filippo and Roland and super well tested. And usually, more than once, they found bugs with the reference implementations in C because they had to re-implement it. And that stuff wouldn't happen if interop was seamless the way it is with other languages.
Slightly related to that, speaking of Filippo and crypto, the regressions in 120 that he fixed in 121 and talked about at GopherCon this year, yeah, those were fun at work. We have a few systems that spend a lot of time verifying public-private keys, and things did not go well when that regressed like it did.
Well, good job that they fixed it.
His talk was really good.
Yes, I went and personally shook his hand and thanked him at the conference.
Filippo's talk was really great, and whenever it's uploaded to YouTube, I'd definitely recommend it for everybody. But one thing that stuck out to me was that he didn't use speaker notes at all. He wasn't even standing in front of the podium. He just kind of riffed for 30 minutes straight with what I'm pretty sure was very little prep. You can just ramble about that stuff for a really long time, and no one cares because they all like to listen to him.
I will say Filippo is the king of preparing like crazy and then coming across so laissez-faire, so I'm just talking, it's chill. So huge props. I want to emanate that kind of speaker confidence in the future.
Yes, life goals as a speaker.
Mm-hmm. Cassie, I feel like you had one.
I have one, but y'all's were so hard tech and I couldn't think of so many. And then one just came to me as I was drinking my water. It's a work life health balance thing. So related, but mine was I'd rather carry around a gallon jug of water everywhere I go rather than filling up a cup, because I never get up from my desk. I'm always at my desk. So now I just stay at my desk, but I stay hydrated. But I don't think other people like to carry a gallon jug.
Do you have one of those monster bottles that look like the size of your head?
I would concur. I don't want to carry a gallon of water everywhere. So yes, unpopular.
Yeah.
It doesn't really fit in the cup holder in my car. That's the problem.
Yeah, you have to prop it up.
That's what baby seats are for.
Exactly. Strap it in.
You put it on the passenger seat, and the little automatic system thinks there's someone there, then starts dinging at you to buckle the seatbelt.
Well, then it rolls onto the floor, and you can't reach it, and you get in a car accident, and that doesn't work out too well.
Downsides all around.
Before this gets too dark, we are coming to the end of our time together. Does anyone have any final burning unpopular opinions? I don't want to cut us off.
So ever since Go 113 was released, I think checking on errors has become intuitively worse, and I hate it. In the past, it was easy to do a switch case on errors. I call an API, I do a switch case. I've got 5 different errors going back, bingo bango, call out the functions. And now I'm doing this errors is, I've got to it's not great. It could be easily implemented in the switch case that, oh, you're in errors. I'm going to avoid errors is and just have the errors listed. So that's my unpopular opinion.
If you standardize them and listen to my talk, it could be a little easier.
Cassie has solved that problem for you.
Done. It's open source. Please use it.
Awesome. Well, that actually brings us to a close from this episode. It's been an absolute pleasure to spend this kind of hour or so with you all. Again, I will encourage all you lovely listeners to go and watch the lightning talks. And if you are interested in giving a lightning talk, I feel like we've left you with a few little tips and tricks to set you up for success. So thank you all again. Have a wonderful weekend. Thank you for spending your Friday with us at Go Time. And goodbye all.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
That is Go Time for this week. Thanks for listening. Subscribe now if you haven't already. Head to gotime.fm for all the ways, or simply search for Go Time in Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You'll find us. Also, check out some of our other shows if you want more developer-focused podcast goodness. The Changelog, JS Party, Practical AI, and Ship It are all worth at least one listen. Thanks once again to our partners at Fly.io, to our Beat Freakin' residents, Breakmaster Cylinder, and to our longtime sponsors, Sentry. Use code Changelog at signup and save yourself $100 off a Sentry team plan. Why not, right? That is all for now, but we'll talk to you again next time on Go Time.